My name is Lance Lee Davis. I'm a full-time freediver, and I hold U.S. national record for constant weight no fins at 74 meters. That's 240-something feet swimming without fins. I teach the PFI system. My company is SoCal Spirit, here based in Los Angeles, and I run kind of a freediving school, teach a lot, do occasional stunts for film and TV, and then have a captain's license and do a little bit of spearfishing guide type work as well here. My absolute earliest memory is actually swimming in the ocean in Malaysia. When I was an infant, we lived on an island in Malaysia called Labuan, and so I remember being over the side of my dad's boat and tasting the salt water, which I'd never tasted salt water before. I'd swum. My parents used to take me to the pool, and of course I loved to play in the, just in the bathtub and in the pool. But I distinctly remember being confused by the taste of salt water because I was like, why does the water taste like this? I started swimming competitively when I was 6 years old, and really loved that. I got pretty serious into competitive swimming. So by the time I was a teenager, all the way into college, I pretty much just slept, ate, breathed swimming, year round, doing 2-a-days, pretty much living at the swimming pool. And then in getting into college, I was getting very burnt out on competitive swimming. I still loved the water. I loved being in the ocean, rivers, just any kind of body of water I really loved. But I was starting to get tired of like swimming in pools and racing in pools. So I stopped swimming competitively, and life took different turns, and I moved to Los Angeles and, would jump in, swim in the ocean every so often. And then what really was a game changer for me was about maybe 13, 14 years ago now, I discovered spearfishing. I love a physical challenge, and I love the strategy of spearfishing. So as soon as I discovered spearfishing, bought some gear, I was instantly hooked. At the time, I still lived in Hollywood, and so every chance I could, I would drive to the water, Malibu, Palos Verdes, whatever, park my car at the top of the cliff, hike down, suit up, jump in the water, chase fish, catch lobsters, just explore and really lose myself in the ocean here. I started trying to arrange my life around diving, and then it was about 5 years ago now, I think, that I decided I could just do it full time. Here in California, our best conditions for sport diving, for depth diving, are usually in the morning. So I wake up early. I like to eat before diving, so I'll have breakfast. I'll have a couple eggs, some toast, pancakes, oatmeal, whatever. I walk around in the backyard, grab some things out of my dive shed. Got my wetsuits and everything hanging up there, most of my dive gear's back there. Throw in the car. I'm about 10 minutes from the water, so I drive to Redondo Harbor. I've got my little boat slip there in the harbor in the old Redondo Marina. I've got it pretty well dialed in. I mean, my boat kind of just lives in the water. I've got my fins and weight belt there at the harbor, and so I get out of the car, unlock the gate, walk onto the slip, unlock my box, and I change into my wetsuit. Once I'm in the wetsuit, you know, I kind of throw all the gear in the boat, start up the engine, and motor out of the harbor. We usually train a mile or two off the beach. The Redondo Submarine Canyon runs right into Veterans Park Beach, right there next to the harbor. We can have hundreds and hundreds of feet fairly near shore and still be within the Santa Monica Bay. So from a training standpoint, that's really nice because, well, it's convenient. We don't have to run, you know, 30 minutes by water to get into water deep enough to really train on. And then also, because we're inside the Santa Monica Bay, we're protected from like major currents, and, you know, it's a big bay, so we still get waves and weather, but like deep, strong currents don't really exist there for us. So that's really nice. Usually the surface visibility can be a little bit green, but once you get down 30 or 40 feet, it actually opens up and is usually crystal clear year round. So that's one nice thing. Downside to our waters here in California, though, is it's a little bit cold, especially when you get deeper. Once you hit the water that's 30 or 40 feet deep there at the thermocline, the temperature can drop suddenly by like 10 degrees almost instantaneously as you're heading down. And so I'm used to it. I kind of miss it when it's not there, when I dive other places, but it definitely wakes you up a little bit. Fundamentally, freediving is simply swimming underwater holding your breath. So I feel like freediving is just completely natural. For me personally, it's something that I've always done. I've always sort of been in the water. I never made much distinction between whether I was swimming at the surface or below the water. These days I prefer to swim more below the water. And I firmly believe that it's just fundamental to humans. You know, we evolved around water. We have a lot of natural physiological responses to water and psychological responses. And so I think for everybody, the water, however you choose to explore it and enjoy it, can be, it's just an incredible resource, and freediving is just my favorite way to experience the water. Before a competition dive, especially at a bigger competition like Vertical Blue, and especially before a dive where maybe I'm gonna set a new national record, tends to be a little bit of nerves, a little bit of tension. So before the dive, I'm trying very hard not to think about that. I usually, if you notice, I'm actually there on the competition line waiting for the time for me to start the dive. I'm trying to not get too involved with anything that might be going on at the surface, especially in a competition, because like there can be blackouts, there can be like drama, this and that, there's media sometimes, and cameras and flash bulbs, and so that's not my favorite part of freediving. And so I just try and push that a little bit aside, focus on the water, focus on my breath, focus on the lungs, the diaphragm, and just feeling good about the air entering my body. I try not to think even that much about breathing. Just let the body breathe on its own. I start the dive with a giant breath.
5,
For this dive, I
4,
take 10 packs.
3, 2, 1, top time.
I start with a strong entry, and then I'm having to swim pretty hard at this point because I'm very buoyant.
74 meters, dive time is 2:40, national record
Once I'm crossing 10 meters, I'm still having to move a little bit, but I could start to slow it down just a little bit and space out the time in between my kicks and my pulls. By 20 meters, there's a lot more space in between, but I'm still swimming down. 30 meters, that's the point at which I can dial back the swimming and basically just sink. At 34 meters, I take a mouth fill, and then at that point, I'm just committed to the dive and I'm focused on just being physically relaxed, keeping up with my equalizations, just trying to just kind of zone out on the line, let myself sink into the darkness. At about 60-ish meters, there's a thermocline where I feel cold water hitting my eyes, and that causes me to wobble a little bit. And then at that point, I'm very close to touchdown. So whenever I touch down, I let my weight belt kind of swing me around. I reach down, grab a tag off the plate, tuck it into my hood, and I start swimming for the surface. Swimming up is one of my favorite parts of the dive. I don't ever like to think about the surface when I'm down there. I just like to think about swimming, but for me it always feels good to swim. And so for most of the dive up until this point, I've been, you know, kind of relaxing and just letting myself sink. And so for me, once I come off the bottom, come off the plate, it's always really, that's like go time for me.
40 meters.
Approaching the surface, it's getting brighter. I start to see the safety divers. I can start to feel my lungs expanding. My muscles feel tired. For this particular dive, I was very clean, meaning like I wasn't feeling foggy in the brain. I still had a lot of good oxygen left to keep me conscious, keep me going. And then as I'm approaching the surface, it's getting very bright. The goggles, the fluid goggles that I'm wearing, they let me see underwater, but I don't see very well at the surface. So once I hit the surface, everything is always just a little bit too bright, a little bit confusing. I'm just focusing on breathing, you know, re-oxygenating, holding onto the line because I don't want to lose consciousness or anything and slip into the water.
The surface protocol to the judges has presented that tag.
So that was the dive.
So Lance Lee Davis,
USA!
constant weight no fins dive to 74 meters, a new national record.
Oh, that's so awesome to see.
Whoa, congratulations.
People ask why I free dive, and it's always very hard for me to explain why I free dive. I mean, it's easy and it's hard. On the easy side, it's like, because I like it, because this is the water, because I enjoy swimming. I love the feeling of breathing. I actually like the feeling of holding my breath. I like the feeling of like swimming through the water column. So that's kind of the easy answer. There's neat stuff to see. I can like go after fish and bring home seafood and all that. And then I think most people can understand that. But then when someone asks like, well, yeah, but why do you dive 240 feet without fins on to the point of losing consciousness potentially? That's harder to answer. And I think I've thought about this a lot, but I think some of it is that I enjoy a challenge. Some of it is identity and ego. You know, I have records that I want to hold on to. I don't get money for those, but I don't know, I just worked for them. It's just something, you know, it's something I do. But in all these activities, in the freediving, even when it's difficult, even when it's just almost painful, there's a kind of beauty to the sensation of the dive, and the different sensations of the dive are so far from anything else that I experience or have ever experienced. And there's moments, even when the dive is physically very difficult, very grueling, you know, consciousness is fading. But there's this just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. There's just kind of moments of, I guess, this sort of transcendence or just something there that makes me want to go there and explore that and feel that. And that's chasing that sensation. That's what always keeps me coming back to the deep dives.